Hey guys, welcome back to True Crime with Shannon, where I cover missing persons, unsolved cases, crime news, and more. So it has been 18 months since Summer Wells went missing. 18 months, and considering today is the 18th month, 18 months, I hate to say anniversary, but the mark, whatever you want to call it. And there's nothing in the mainstream news about this little girl. And I just did another check on it, and this is getting close to 5:30 Eastern time. So I'll let that sink in for a bit. All right, but before we get into talking about the little Summer Wells, I always like to feature a missing persons poster on the channel. So let me pull up today's missing persons poster. Today's missing person is a critical missing, another one out of Washington. There's a lot of missing from Washington and Memphis, Tennessee. I don't know if these are runaways or what's going on, but like I said, I just wish I had the time. And with the holidays, it's so difficult for me to find the time. I really would like to do some concentrated work on some of these areas that just have so many missing kids and people. So hopefully, if I can't do that this month, hopefully I can start doing that in the new year. So this is Aaron Ratliff. He's been missing from the 2500 block of Pomeroy Road Southeast since December 12th, about 8 a.m., it states. The Metropolitan Police Department is seeking the public's assistance in locating 11-year-old Aaron Ratliff, who was last seen in the 2500 block of Pomeroy Road Southeast on Monday, December 12th at 8 a.m. So today's Thursday. He was just seen on Monday. Aaron Ratliff is described as a black male, 4 feet tall, 60 pounds, with short black hair and brown eyes. He was last seen wearing a gray shirt with the KIPP school logo on the front, a bluish gray coat, blue jeans, and black New Balance sneakers. They're asking if you have any information on this 11-year-old to contact them at 202-727-9099, or you can text to 50411. And of course, you can always call 911. Again, if you have any information on this critical missing child from metropolitan area of Washington, D.C., please do contact the authorities. A good update is, I'm going to actually add it to there, Dakota, who I posted about last week, who was missing out of Kissimmee, Florida. She has been found safe and she is back in school this week. So it's always nice to hear some good news and finding these kiddos home, back safe with their families. So, all right. So Summer Wells, she was the first case that I've covered here on the channel. And then the second case was Michael Vaughn. So again, both of them have a place in my heart. And unfortunately, with Summer Wells, it's quite a different case than Michael. And there's just so much going on with Summer Wells. And talk about contrasting families. I mean, that's putting it, one way. Um, I will state that I know that Don Wells, her father, did get out of jail, I believe, a couple weeks ago. So he is out of jail. I have heard nothing that if he went back to Ben Hill Road, their home. And last I heard, Candace was out of state. So don't know if they're staying away from each other or if Don has wooed Candace Bly back home to Ben Hill Road. All right, and then there's of course another whole thing going on with Summer Wells Reward Fund, and you guys can read it if you want to Google it. That's the only thing that's come up this week, and that's a hot mess, you guys. That's got nothing to do with this missing little girl. I mean, it's a reward fund, but I'd rather not get into that. So, this is WATE, one of the big sources here. They've done a ton of stuff. I'm going to show a few videos from them and some other ones as well, some clips. That said, I'm going to go through the timeline, just a basic quickie on it, and of course, the three main adults involved in Summer's disappearance here. So let me pull that up here. All right, so of course, this is Summer Wells. The 5-year-old Summer Wells, she goes missing on June 15th, 2021. That's 18 months ago today. Today is December 25th, 2022. So that's how long this little girl has been gone. Family reports her missing around 6:30 p.m. that evening. From what I understand, law enforcement has, I believe unofficially, they believe she probably disappeared in the afternoon. So the timeline that Don was not even supposedly even home. He was supposedly is the key word here, y'all. He was supposedly at work or somewhere else, and Summer was with her mom, Candace, and Grandis. That's her grandmother. And there was a whole big thing going on that day. But the stories with Candace and Grandis have changed just a bit, and there's some things going on. And let me tell you what, the day Summer disappeared, you would think that Candace was some kind of active person or something, because she described herself as doing all these crazy things. I remember her saying at one point that she was out taking a walk or a jog. I don't know about y'all, but I cannot see Candace Bly walking or jogging anywhere, especially in her condition. But as far as just maybe a walk, but let me she also said that there's bears and other things around that area on Ben Hill Road. So she contradicted herself on that. That was always one that stood out to me, as far as, her saying that she went for some kind of walk or jog. And I could tell you she maybe walks somewhere, but I don't think she walks anywhere she doesn't have to. So, all right, so a massive ground search commences the next morning when the sun comes up. So, June 16th of 2021 in the morning, the ground searches begin. Her father, Don Wells, he believes some bad person grabbed her. The longer this case has gone on, pretty much we all don't believe that story. But again, these are also my opinions into this, considering I've been following this case so long, for about a year now. Let's see. Law enforcement provides daily pressers for 10 consecutive days. So they went on with TBI and all the other media. They pretty much for 10 days they gave updates consistently. After that, it got a little less, you know, they give us a little less updates on things. On June 26th, TBI announces that they were searching for a late model red Tacoma truck seen in the area. It may be a potential witness. So I have no idea if they ever located this truck, because there's no information, and if they had. So I definitely don't have it. If you've heard that they've located this truck and cleared it or what have you, please let me know, because I haven't seen it anywhere that that's even happened. Candace Bly speaks to the media for the first time on June 28th, while Don had spoken out back on June 18th. So Don only waited about 3 days before he decided to have a little chat with the media, and while Candace waited about 10 days before she decided to talk. So, and then Grandis never talked to the media for quite some time, but we'll get into Grandis. So let me pull the next one up here. All right, so here is Don Wells. This is the story that he gave back in June of 2021. Granted, remember, he said he wasn't home, and Candace backs that up, and Grandis seemed to back that up. So their story seems to be that he was at work or not home anyway, regardless. So she was planting flowers with her mother, that's Summer, and her grandmother, and she wanted to go into the house. So my wife, that's Candace, watched her go into the door, and she went into the house, said Wells. And the boys were on the internet, of course. I believe they were playing video games, so that part I can kind of, forgive that one. And she wanted to go downstairs and play with her toys. So when her mother came in, she says, Summer, and she went down into the basement and she didn't answer. So she went down there and she was gone. So she went out the basement door, which was unlocked, and we haven't seen her since. So Don's story is pretty much the story that Candace tells. So obviously he checked with Candace before he decided to talk to the media. So let's pull up Candace's story. All right, now Candace's story from the beginning here. She said, me and my mother and her were planting flowers. And we went in after we got done washing our hands, and Summer got a piece of candy from Grandma, Bly said. And Summer wanted to go back over and see her brothers. And I said, okay. And I walked her all the way over to the porch, and I watched her walking into the kitchen where the boys were watching TV. I told the boys, I said, watch Summer. I'll be back. And within 2 minutes, I came back and I asked the boys where their sister was, and they said she went downstairs. Uh, she went downstairs, Mom, to play with her toys in the playroom. I said, okay, and I yelled downstairs for her a couple of times, and I didn't get no answer. And I was unusual because usually she always answers me. And so I went down there to check, and she was nowhere in sight. So, granted, her story and Don's are pretty much, they kind of line up, because obviously Candace and him, they converge in that as far as I'm concerned. Of course, that's my opinion on that. And then we got Grandis, who didn't speak till much later, but she's got some back history of her own, which we've discussed here on the channel before, and I'll remind you if you don't remember Grandis's history here. All right, now Candace's horror story, which we call Grandis. Summer come in and had a piece of peppermint, which is her favorite. She went in, she said, Mama, I want to go play with the boys. Candy, which is Candace, walked her back into the house, and she asked the boys to keep an eye on her, and that's the last time I saw her. Hers is kind of brief and to the point. And so there you go. Now, Grandis went on in an interview to mention how traumatic this was because she had lost a daughter, an adult daughter, 12 years before this. Now, like I said, we've discussed this on the channel, and I will link to that video. It was also one of the first handful of videos I did on the channel. That was Rose Bly. That's another suspicious disappearance, which is yet to be solved. So, and I've said it before on the channel, what's the likeliness of two members of a family disappearing? It's not really high. All right, so let's continue. Let's go back to the timeline. Okay, so we're going to kind of jump to July since we covered the beginning with June happening there. So July 21st, that's a typo there. A spokesperson with the Department of Children's Services confirmed that the department was involved in the Summer Wells investigation. Then we go to July 27th. This is, of course, 2021. The Church Hill Rescue Squad announced it would no longer be the lead agency orchestrating any search efforts for Summer, announcing the Hawkins County Sheriff's Office as the primary agency. July 29th. Bly stated that her sons had been in the custody of the Department of Child Protective Services since the previous week. John Wells had also confirmed their older sons were taken by CPS, but he wouldn't give the reason. And then, of course, he's also stated during this time that he couldn't really talk about it, which doesn't surprise me. And the boys are still in the custody of the state, and I hope they never get back to them. And then we're going to August, September 2021. At the beginning of August, the Hawkins County Sheriff's Office posted to Facebook stating that no psychics had been used in the search for Summer. So that's always, well, I don't want to say always, I guess that's kind of, but it's a lot of times the psychics come out with these true crime cases, and personally, I don't believe in psychics. And, if you do, that's cool. I don't believe in them at all. I believe in law and just investigations, forensics, DNA, all that sort of stuff. And that's just the way it's going to get solved. The crimes will get solved. August 11th, 2021, Lawson said in a video posted by the TBI that the search for Summer was certainly not over, despite concerns and speculations. In September, Summer was featured on In Pursuit with John Walsh. Sadly, nothing has really happened with that. Summer Wells' reward fund surpassed $40,000. The Tennessee Bureau of Investigation announced that months of searching had yielded no clues as to Summer's whereabouts. So we are in September 2021 from June, and the TBI, remember Leslie stated, they had no idea what was going on. They would assume at this point in the investigation they would have more information and at least something more to go by, and they just didn't have it. So yeah. October 27th, the Churchill Rescue Squad also announced that the reward fund had surpassed $58,000. October 31st, Don Wells was pulled over on a suspicion of DUI and arrested live on YouTube. November 1st, while in court for the DUI charge, Wells was arrested on a violation of a probation charge. He was later released on his own recognizance bond. On that same day in court, News Channel 11, which is WATE, learned a gag order had been issued for the Child Protective Services case involving the other Wells children. So yeah, this was between all this was the time that Don was telling everybody, I can't talk about the boys. All right, and then we got the end of the year, November, December 2021. November 10th, TBI tweeted that the agency had seen an uptick in misinformation surrounding the Summer Wells case, adding that the agency had executed search warrants and collected potential digital evidence. The agency told the public to stick to the facts, all of which can be found on the TBI Summer Wells newsroom webpage. Despite thousands of tips since June 15th, the search for Summer Wells continues, and it still continues to this day, almost basically a year later. Law enforcement held several searches in December of last year, December 2021. A TBI spokeswoman said the return to ground searches was part of a plan to take advantage of winter weather when foliage was less dense. No new developments are reported. So we're looking at a year ago today, they had nothing, which of course is what we have right now. Nothing. Sad, sad situation. All right, and then we are moving to January 2022. Candace Bly reported Don Wells for domestic assault in January, according to police reports. The family is facing pressure from a cult-like following on social media. A Kingsport police investigation began after a child unrelated to the case was recorded on video by a woman visiting the Wells church. The video was posted on YouTube but later taken down. Now, I don't know if you guys remember, Candace really liked to go on YouTube and social media during the beginning months that Summer was missing. She was everywhere, and she was drinking and talking to about anyone she could, and most of it made no sense that I could gather. And I didn't watch most of it, but I saw pieces in it. She would just talk and talk and talk. She'd seem like she'd sit outside with a bunch of folks, get on YouTube or what have you, and just chat. That seemed to be her thing. Churchill Rescue Squad announces the reward fund for information about Summer Wells was nearing $74,000. Don Wells spoke in January about how social media sleuths have scared the family and disrupted his work. Yeah, he claimed they came to his work, scared him and Candace. So there was a lot of crazy stuff happening in the beginning of the year for the Wells. Then we move to February, March 2022. That should say February 15th, not June 15th. Marked 234 days that Summer had been missing. A prayer vigil was held again in Kingsport as the community remembered the missing girl. Don Wells is sentenced to jail time for a DUI arrest that happened back in October. Because it was a violation of his probation, the judge gave Wells 11 months and 29 days in the Hawkins County Jail. He may be eligible for early release, however. A series of small-scale planned searches in the Beech Creek community had not resulted in any leads or updates in the Summer Wells case, according to the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation spokesperson Leslie Earhart. And then we got in March, Hawkins County Sheriff Ronnie Lawson told media that Wells and Bly are, quote, not cooperating right now. So the non-cooperation truly began in March. All right, and this is my last slide because there's not been much going on since April. So April 2022, Hawkins County Sheriff's Office Detective John Pruitt The lead investigator in the Summer Wells case spoke about the case for the first time. And self-proclaimed investigators and quote social sleuths have turned the case into a mess of ideas that has brought tips from across the United States and overseas, he said. So, yeah, that's where we are in April. And honestly, we're not much further than we were in April. You're going April to December. The last 6 months, not much is going on in this case for this little girl. She's very, very sad. And it's just really sad. Well, let me play a couple snippets of some interviews.
I know she didn't walk away from this property by herself or off this yard by her swing. I feel in my heart that somebody has came up here and took her and has lured her away from here. Me and my mother and her were planting flowers. And we went in after we got done washing our hands, and she got a piece of candy from Grandma, and she wanted to go back over and see her brothers. And I said, okay, and I walked her all the way over to the porch, and I watched her walk into the kitchen where the boys were watching TV. And I told the boys, I said, watch Summer, I'll be back. And within 2 minutes I came back, and I asked the boys where their sister was, and they said, she went downstairs, Mom, to play with her toys in the playroom. I said, okay. And I yelled downstairs for her a couple times, and I didn't get no answer, which was unusual because usually she always answers me. And so I went down there to check, and she was nowhere in sight. She was just gone. I don't go on walks around here or runs because I'm scared of the bears and snakes and even the coyotes that are around here. Well, whoever has my daughter, I pray and hope that they have not harmed her and they bring her back to us safe and sound.
Go to the FBI, the police, and clear it up. I don't know, it seems kind of elusive.
It's really strange that I've never seen this truck, and I've never heard of it until just recently. But I wish they would come forward and explain themselves. And if you're not a suspect, at least come forward and say what you've seen.
Well, I knew right away that she was abducted. You know, I knew that right away, and that's what I told them from the beginning. But they have to go through their, I forget the word.
Investigation.
They have to do one step at a time, I guess. But I'm sorry that they had to spend so many man hours in these woods and everything. I've seen them limping and everything else, and I feel for them. But I just wish there was a way that neighbors could search neighbors' houses, and then if they're not willing, get a search warrant or something. But there's just no way you can search every single house, in the eastern United States or whatever. But I wish there was a way. Just thankful for the person or persons that's doing that, out of love, trying to get information and trying to get her found. And we thank them from the bottom of our hearts.
It means a lot.
And we thank everybody who's trying so hard and praying so hard. And she's an awesome young lady, and we just want her back.
So it's interesting how Don says, "Oh, it's so horrible that these searchers have to be out there in these horrible conditions," and he immediately jumps to, "Oh, I knew she was abducted. I knew it." And if you notice, neither one of them can look the interviewer next to the camera or the camera right at the camera. I think there's so much deception in their story or stories, considering they've changed them a slight bit, especially Candace. But again, I don't think at all. I agree with TBI. I don't believe that she was abducted at all. I think something happened that day, and Candace knows exactly what happened to Summer. That's my opinion on that. So, and sadly, I don't think she's no longer with us. I think she's been gone from the beginning. and some sort of an accident. Did they make it to the swimming hole? Did it happen there? Did it happen before that? I don't know. I think the only one or ones that can fill in the gaps in this story would be Candace, probably Grandis, and maybe Hunter, if he was there, like that he's claiming he was there that day with the family when they went to they bring Grandis to the emergency room. Then they went to Walgreens to pick up a prescription. All these stories, and of course, Candace said that morning that her mom's leg was hurting her, so she had to take her to the ER and all this other stuff. And so I don't believe the stories that had been given out for what happened that day, June 15th, 2021. I don't think the majority of it is true, and I don't believe it. It's just there's just holes to me in it, and I mean, I for all we know, Don knows more as well. I think he does. I think these two people on the screen right now, they know where their daughter is. They know, and after all this time, it would be nice to just let it out. Come on, Candace and Don, let's just tell the truth. Let's let the truth out. Let's get some closure. Hey, you're gonna feel better about it, and the public's gonna get their closure in Hawkins County. The community is gonna get their closure. So be a nice thing if they could close out the year with some truth, but I doubt that's going to happen from these two here on the screen, sadly. All right, let me pull up the bit of a talk from the investigator. All right, we had the lead investigator. He spoke out earlier this year, April, and let's see the update on that.
Today, for the first time, we are learning the lead investigator in the Summer Wells case is speaking out. The pressure has been immense on the Hawkins County Sheriff's Office to figure out what happened to a little girl who reported missing back in June.
Ansley Daniel has been following this case closely. She has an update. Ansley?
Josh and Sarah, there was frustration, some anger, and the presence of a heavy burden when I sat down with the detective John Pruitt with the Hawkins County Sheriff's Office. He's led this investigation into Summer's disappearance. He told me that as difficult as this case is to work, he is nowhere near giving up.
It is a lot to shoulder, it's a lot to burden. We have a missing child that we haven't found yet.
Almost 10 months and so much heartache. And investigators aren't immune from that hurt. The question of what happened to Summer Wells still has no answer.
There haven't been very many cases like this. I have never worked a missing child case with all these different entities and agencies involved.
The lead investigator on the case says his days are devoted to finding her.
My day, I check tip line and voicemail when I first get here. I do phone calls and follow-ups on any credible leads I've got. I follow up on anything that I didn't get to a good conclusion the day before. Then I go into my normal caseload of any new cases I've got, follow-ups on them.
They've received nearly 2,000 tips.
I will follow up on everything I can to try to bring closure for this.
Self-proclaimed online investigators and social media sleuths have turned this case into a mess of ideas. And tips have come in from everywhere across the U.S. and even overseas. That help, Pruitt says, has led to little more than time wasted.
If these people want to help so much, we always accept applications to certified individuals.
He says the investigation has led to the continued thought that if Summer is found, it will be nearby.
I believe that she would probably be somewhere close by, because we found nothing to lead us to believe that she's been abducted or trafficked out of the area.
Pruitt works alongside the TBI and FBI. Along with the ground search, Pruitt says investigators have poured through data. Almost a year into the case, and Detective Pruitt says it still remains a very active investigation.
I'm not going to let it go cold.
Well, Detective Pruitt assures that what happened to Summer Wells is still being investigated daily. Tonight at 6, he walks us through each day and what it is like for a case that is like no others for all the investigators involved.
So pretty much like I said, where they stood there, that's where we stand today. There's no updates on this little girl. It's truly, truly, truly sad that that we don't know what happened. That what truly happened to little Summer Wells. And there's been a lot of, like he said, there have been a lot of web sleuths that have gone through it. I know some have been, helpful, I'm sure, getting the word out, and some have been less than helpful. Uh, I won't get into that. I'm sure some of you guys can imagine or are aware of. But here on my channel, I strive to just put the word out, keep to the facts, and do what we can to spread the word and keep their faces out there and bring them home, you know, and get the justice for them. And if there's been a crime done, something's happened to them. And I believe in the Summer Wells case, I do believe something happened, and I believe it was covered up. Again, I have to make sure everybody knows that that's my opinion on it. Uh, I don't, obviously, we have no idea, but I believe something happened on, that June of 2021, and something happened to Summer, and she was not abducted. I don't believe that at all. There's a few possibilities that it was an accident or what have you, or it's been many, many, many theories that have come about these last 18 months. And it's just like all the other open cases, Delphi and all the other ones. And there's always theories and thoughts and, all that stuff. But I think with Summer Wells, there's a lot of folks have come to the conclusion that she wasn't, taken. She didn't walk away from her home on Ben Hill Road. Uh, so I really hope that, again, I really hope we can get some closure on this case of this little girl. And she lived in an awful home, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, we've seen the home, and let me actually pull up. Let's check that out before we close out the video, so we can see the conditions that Summer and her brothers lived in back in 2021. And let's close out the video. And 18-month, I hate to say update because it's really not an update on this one here, with News Nation talking about Summer Wells and going inside the Wells home back in 2021. So let's check that out.
Welcome back to Prime. 5-year-olds don't just vanish. Those are the words from retired homicide detective Chris McDonough. He has spent his career looking into high-profile cases from JonBenet Ramsey to Elizabeth Smart. Now he's focusing his attention on the disappearance of Summer Wells as the host of The Interview Room, and we continue to follow Summer's case as well here on Prime. Chris is back with us tonight. Chris, good to see you. Thanks for coming back.
Thank you for inviting me.
So Summer's parents, Don and Candace, have been the target of threats, accusations that they had something to do with Summer's disappearance. They have denied any involvement. They say that she was abducted. They have passed a polygraph test. At this point, the sheriff is saying anything's on the table. All people are persons of interest. But has the public jumped to conclusions too soon on these parents without the evidence to back this up?
Yeah, I think everybody is innocent till proven guilty for sure. And at this point, there are just, as your reporters, pointed out, Brian, that there's just too many moving parts here. There are a couple of theories that still, need to be nailed down. And obviously the authorities don't have those pieces yet.
Mm-hmm. Let's go back to the property, Chris. You spent some time there on the family's property. You went inside the house. You went into Summer's room, and you say that it encapsulated her. So I want to show some of this video for folks at home, and I want us to walk through exactly what you saw inside this home.
So this is Candace showing me essentially where the boys were sitting. They were sitting right there at that table, looking at that TV, playing video games. Summer went down into the basement. She's pointing to this table here that has basically a crawl space into it. And down into that crawl space goes down into the parents and Summer's room. So I asked her if she would take me down there. She did, and so we crawl through there.
So
now,
can I stop you real quick, Chris? Because so this is the only way to get to Summers and the parents' room is through this crawl space.
Right. This is the way she said Summer went into that basement.
Why do they have it set up like that?
That is a great question. I don't have that answer.
Okay, continue.
So we get down there, and of course, this is Summer's room here that you're seeing. All of the items in the back corner belong to Summer. There is a mattress on the floor, the 2 bunk beds. The windows are secured with reflective type of materials, and so you can tell this is, it's pretty striking pretty quickly for a 5-year-old to be in this environment.
Chris, the other 3 boys, Summers' brothers, were removed from the home, taken into protective custody. Are they key to understanding anything in this case and her disappearance? Is there a chance that they are able to shine some light on what may have happened?
From my opinion as retired investigator, they would be, yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And in terms of the parents and their past, that has also been something that is much talked about. Candace filed for an order of protection against her husband, Don, saying that she was afraid of being hurt. She was afraid for those kids. That was likely part of why they were removed from the home. How do investigators take that information and also anything the kids might know and try to piece this puzzle together?
Yeah, Marty, that's a great question. So, with a 5-year-old child, obviously time is of the essence. So the first officer on the scene quickly wants to assess, who had last contact, what were those conditions in relationship to that contact, how much time has elapsed before the last person saw the child. And so immediately you want to start talking to the parents and you want to try to separate them. And as you go along, trying to get the information initially about the child, then the parent's background becomes significant in relationship to an investigative process as more resources are arriving on the scene.
Chris, police say that there was no evidence of foul play, yet they issued an Amber Alert. How can they be so sure?
Well, that's a great question. The investigative process is still, ongoing. It could be an accident. It could be, something, an intentional act of some sort. I think the investigators, and we heard Sheriff Lawson even say today, that everything is still on the table.
Mm-hmm. You have been in contact with the parents, Don and Candace. Are you still in touch with them now?
Not currently, no.
What's the deal with this red truck? It is potentially a piece of this puzzle. Have you heard anything about the truck? Has it led to any evidence or information for investigators?
Well, at this point, TBI has reported that the red truck, they want to try to contact that individual who may have been driving. There is a witness who is really vague about whether it was around the area on the 14th or the 15th. So it could have been the day before or the day of Summer's disappearance. However, I think what they want to do is just check the box to eliminate that truck. They have eliminated a lot of red trucks in that area.
How closely would investigators be looking at family and friends of both Candace and Don, this inner circle of people that they know, especially given the fact that Don has admitted that they had some wrong friends, or at least Candace did?
That would be significant. And you want to, again, you want to look at the abduction theory, and you have to think, how high of a risk would a subject who would want to, take a child, a 5-year-old, how high of a risk would that suspect take? And in that terrain and coming up that hill with the information that Summer between 2 and 10-minute time frame was in that basement, the universe would have to be 100% on schedule for all those stars to align. So that's where you want to start, shifting your focus in relationship to, taking a look at the inner circle, who had access to that property and or who had access to the parents.
Chris, 5 months is a long time for this little girl to be missing. As more time goes by, how optimistic are you that this case is solvable, that we can find Summer and bring her home safely?
Well, I'm always optimistic. Statistically, though, that optimism starts to dwindle. However, I do believe this case will be solved. I think they have the correct resources on it with TBI, FBI, as well as the Hoxton County Sheriff's Department in the lead. And I, like you and the rest of the nation, are praying. I'm praying that they do find her alive.
I share in that prayer. It has our attention. It has the attention of a lot of people on social media. And those folks on social media are relentless, as are we. Chris McDonough, we appreciate your time and, as always, your insight. Thank you.
All right, I'm definitely going to be including the link to Chris McDonough's channel, The Interview Room. He did amazing coverage on this case, particularly early on. And as, of course, later on, the family, Candace specifically, because Don ended up in jail, she stopped speaking to Chris. So, but he's got some amazing insight. He spoke with Candace, of course, and he's got as you can see, he did the tour of the home, which I find horrific, as do many others. And he went down to the swimming hole where they claimed that they were down to. And he also spoke with Hunter, the young teen who is friends with Candace and claims with them the day that Summer disappeared. So, and came with them and Grandis to the hospital and to Walgreens and the swimming hole. So there's Chris McDonough is a amazing resource of information, and he's also been helping with the Michael Vaughn case. So it's kind of interesting to me that the first two cases I've covered here on True Crime with Shannon, that Chris McDonough has been right there with them, and he's an amazing resource and another retired, investigator that the community is lucky to have, as well as some others that I've mentioned here on the channel. And of course, I'll continue to mention when they're involved in a case. And so hopefully some more answers can come out soon. And like I said with Chris, I've been trying to remain optimistic, just like the rest of us. And I really don't want this case to never be solved. We want resolution, and whether, she's found, alive and well, or, they find her remains. The bottom line is we all want resolution to bring Summer home, find Summer Wells, and to bring that person or persons to justice that may have been involved in her disappearance. So that's always the bottom line in these cases, and to bring them home and then get the justice that they deserve. So, all right, guys, I want to thank you for checking out this video, and I'll keep you apprised. Summer Wells said there's not been much going on since April. So we'll see what happens in 2023 with Summer Wells, and hopefully we'll get some resolution sooner than later. All right, guys, thanks for checking out the channel. If you'd hit that like button on the way out, and be sure to leave me any comments if you have any, and if you know any information on this case, please let me know. My email's in the information of every single video. And with that said, I hope you have a great rest of the day, and most of all, stay safe.